Here is the intake side of the motor. These are drag play ported for the 4mm long rod. You can see the finish looks a little different because this one had to be re-nickel soled. This one was just fine. Now, if you watch my videos, you know that I like to 3-bond up the intake. 1211 3-bond is what I use. And I suggest putting it on all mating surfaces. You'll never have an air leak. You know, a lot of people do not like this and they'll express their opinions about it. Oh my God, that's not a bathtub. Oh, it's not a storm window. What are you doing? Well, I'll tell you right now that this absolutely hurts nothing. You know what it does? Makes it for a little longer cleanup when you take it apart, and that's what people don't like. You have to scrub all the surfaces because everything's stuck together. But better than that, than blowing up the motor every time it sucks some air in. You don't need much, just a little bit all the way around. You force 4 reeds. And this is a billet intake with an internal crossover. It looks to be of the China variety. I took it apart and 3-bonded it also. And I will 3-bond some boots onto it. All right, getting ready to do a leak down test. We're going to squish test this thing. We already know it rolls through everything real nice. Forward and back, no issues. So I'm going to take a 62 thousandths thick solder and just put it in line with the wrist pin. And rotate it through top dead center. And then I'll take a pair of calipers and measure it just to see exactly where it's at. This one should always come out to about 50 thousandths because that's the way I cut my domes for this type of build. And you can see, give or take a few thousandths for the way people measure and then the way the aftermarket stuff fits together. But that's solid. You do both sides. You can go left and right, but keep in line with the wrist pin. Never go forward and back. I don't care what anybody tells you. Always in line with the wrist pin. You don't want the piston to rock. It's only 3 thousandths piston to wall clearance, but it will rock and give you different readings. As long as you're clearing and nothing's hitting, you're pretty good in the ballpark there. Now, I got my exhaust plugged and my intakes plugged. I glued these boots on. You can see that this is fresh and still drying. Always glue those boots in there. Get my leak test going. A little grease and an O-ring, and this gets seated into the spark plug hole. I put about, I can hear air leaking. It's usually always from these exhaust boots. Basically what I'm doing here is, this is the pressure of the air. Looks like it's about 8. And this is the bleed gauge. So if this bleeds backwards, you're losing pressure in the motor. We don't want that to move at all. You don't have to exactly have it zeroed out. You just got to have the needle stopped in a spot and to stay there. So we'll let that sit for 5 or 10 minutes. It shouldn't leak at all. None of the motors do, particularly because I use 3-bond on everything. There's just nowhere for the air to escape. Usually, if something's leaking, it's out one of the plugs here, or the exhaust, or even the spark plug holes. Everything else is tight. All right, this about wraps it up. We're gonna throw the motor in the chassis. It's a finesse job. I'm getting too old for this stuff. All right, let's get the bolts in. All right, front and back motor mounts. The underside motor mounts. We're gonna slide on the sprocket nut. Sprocket. There we go. Whew. If it's not one thing, it's another, like I always say. Chain's a little tight. Gotta put the water plugs in. I've got to change out the carburetors because these are 35s and he wants 39s. Because that is a 421 with the drag port, so we are going to change these carburetors out. He has an aftermarket Easy Thumb on here, but this stock throw is not going to be long enough to open those 39s up all the way. Needs an aftermarket thumb throttle to get the full opening. I think that might be enough. I can get it out of here and he can start riding the dunes before Halloween. New Motion Pro cable. Just gonna bring it up through the back side of the radiator here. Let's get those carbs jetted and put on here and get everything adjusted so they open all the way. Most carburetors don't run right on the Banshee because they don't have the right needles. Believe it or not, these are the most important jets right here, the needle jet. And we have the mains and the pilots. All right, we're gonna change these needles out because Banshees don't use D series needles. D as in dog. They use C as in cat. The Banshee's a cat, not a dog. As says so by all the aftermarket cylinders. They're all cats. Makes sense. $160. I think that's what we're going to go with. So that's a good main jet. That's a 60 pilot. We're going to go with a 55. Now when I put the slide in here with those CEL needles, what I do is I turn this plastic idle screw in until it contacts the slide. and then I do 2 turns. And because it's a plastic, it's not molded perfect. You want to eyeball it also as you turn it in and get it to the highest point on the second turn. That's close for setup. Now, these springs are a little too long. They really tire your thumb out. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, clip. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, clip. Shortens them up, saves your thumb. Now, remember when you're setting these carbs up, the caps, right here, there's adjusters on them. And this is what you gotta do to get the slides to come up evenly and engage at the same time. And up at the thumb throttle, you want to make that as tight as you can with just a little bit of play, like a 1/16 or an 1/8 of play, so you get the most throw possible. So this here, you want just a little bit of give, so the slides are all the way closed. You want to make sure the slides are all the way closed and that you can open them all the way. And now I got plenty of throw. I have everything loosely on, nothing's bolted down. Put radiator fluid, just straight water. Put a little oil in the gearbox, clutch area. Put a little mixed 110 in here. It's race fuel on initial startup, no load on the motor. You can use pump gas if you want, but I have it sitting in the garage here, so I have a race gas sitting in the old shopper, so I put it in. So this is going to be the very first test. I'm going to choke both carbs. These are 39 PWKs, so you have to choke them individually. And the gas line, and nothing's really routed, hard routed. So I'm going to try and get it started. Run, choke. I don't think there's a key on this one. I'm going to turn the run off. I'm going to hold the throttle wide open, and I'm just going to get some fuel in the cylinders. So slap the fuel in, then I turn it on, make sure the chokes are up, and see if it'll start. Show you the next bike in line here. He destroyed his top end, everything. But that piston broke apart and damaged the underside of the head about as bad as I've ever seen. I already threw it in the trash. The cylinder, if you can catch that It's I can't bore that out. It goes all the way back to the aluminum. Plus it's on both sides. So he will be getting an all new cylinder set. These were China cylinders. No fault of their own that this happened. It was whatever was here. I don't know if the wrist pin went, because there's no wrist pin in it. And the big end rod, I can't even turn it, but I've had this one in here before. You can see the cases are ported, and it had a different top end on it. It was ported and everything. I don't know what happened to it. It's been some time, and then somebody stuck a stock style top end on it, and of course it went south again. That's what these things do. They rob you of your money constantly.